Hi, Thriller Movies Recap here. Today I'm going to show you a horror movie from 2022, so relax and enjoy. Spoilers ahead, watch out. The Woods family relocate to their new residence. While the couple and their son Brian is thrilled with the house they purchased for the family, Ellie, their daughter, has other ideas. She regrets leaving her pals behind and feels distant from her parents because she believed they failed to comprehend her. The family tour the house to get a view of how unique it is. They see an antique painting of a man with his finger up on the wall. They check the cellar and Ellie says it's filthy. On their way out, the door shuts before she could go out. Ellie felt something approaching in the dark and gets afraid because there's a problem with the lock that prevents it from opening again. Fortunately, Brian uses the key that is hanging near the door to let her out. Later that night, Kira asks Ellie to watch Steven while she and Brian head to the office for a critical meeting. Ellie is having a conversation with an old acquaintance when she is startled. It turns out to be Steven, who is dressed in a cloak and has a bizarre-looking skull that he discovered in a secret alcove. Ellie discovers an antique record player and an abacus in the concealed compartment, a feature the family was unaware of. Steven requests she tries the record player after claiming to have heard that a witch who made a deal with the devil formerly owned the property. After Ellie sets it up, the recording begins with a man reading the equation that is written on the record before the countdown begins. A couple of hours later, the entire house loses power due to an odd breeze that appears from under the cellar door. When Ellie contacts her mom for assistance, Kira advises her to check the circuit breaker in the basement. Ellie tells Kira she can't do this because she's too afraid to go into a place like this in the dark. Kira then shares with her a small trick she does to help her relax. She counts. Kira counts as she leads Ellie through the phone, giving her encouragement at each step. When Ellie reaches the 10th step, she shuts her eyes and collapses. When Ellie reaches 10, Kira realizes that she keeps counting in a dreamy way, so Kira and Brian rush back home. They phone the police after arriving and finding Ellie nowhere in the house. After conducting a brief search of the nearby woods without success and realizing that Ellie has a history of running away from home, the police advise Ellie's parents to wait for updates, assuming that she is likely at a friend's place. The family goes out into the forest to look in the morning after asking some of their neighbors for assistance, but the outcome is the same. The following day, Kira starts putting up posters of a missing person and doesn't remember to pick up Steven from school until the instructor contacts her. When Kira returns to the police station, she looks for any update, but the detective isn't helpful. The fact that they haven't located Ellie's phone further adds to the lack of clues despite their searching of surveillance cameras at bus and train terminals and calling Ellie's close pals. The detective's only significant observation is that Ellie has been the target of harassment and bullying on social media for some time. Feeling bad that she was unaware of this, Kira requests that detectives inspect the cellar since she is certain her daughter did not flee. The investigator tells her that he is limited in what he can do because it isn't a criminal case. Returning home, Kira finds the word "solve et coagula" engraved on the entrance door. While Steven is making his ball bounce off the cellar door, she decides to look up the phrase online. According to the search results, the term signifies dissolve and coagulate, and has ties to ancient magic. Images of a strange snake and a 5-pointed star can be found in the associated photos. Kira, intrigued, calls Steven over, and her son follows her after dumping his ball close to the cellar. Steven informs his mother that nothing unusual occurred the night Ellie vanished. The only thing they did was to turn on the record player. Kira disregards it and returns to the computer to browse Ellie's social media accounts. There she discovers that her daughter has an extremist symbol that she hasn't disclosed to her family. Kira then makes the decision to investigate the cellar once more. She takes a moment to look at the pentagon over the door before bringing a light tube inside. On this occasion, she observes that the staircase has Roman numerals on them and that the equation at the end of them matches the one on the record player. The most startling revelation, though, is when the light from the tube reveals a number of unsettling faces that have been painted on the wall. This is sufficient for the police to send a team at last, one of whose members inadvertently pushes Steven's ball into the cellar. Regretfully, the authorities discover no other hints, and their only conclusion is that the picture has been there since the 1950s. When queried about the house's past, Brian replies that all they know is that they got it for a very low price and it used to belong to an elderly woman. As night falls, the family retires to sleep, but Steven wakes Kira up after wetting his bed. Kira changes his sheets and then heads to the bathroom to hear her daughter's voice on the answering machine in an attempt to find some solace. Kira is startled when she hears Ellie's voice counting from the pipework in the sink. Kira follows the voice, which is still audible when she exits the restroom, and eventually finds out it originates from the basement. She kicks Steven's ball mistakenly as she goes inside, causing it to fall down the staircase and bounce for far longer than it should to get to the last step. When Kira flips on the light and walks downstairs, she is unable to find the ball anywhere. When Brian awakens in the morning, he discovers that Kira never returned to bed. He searches for her and noticed that not only is she staring at the symbols above the doors, she has also written down the equation from the basement on a piece of paper. Brian understands how helpless it feels, but he doesn't think concentrating over some insignificant symbols will make anything better. Kira then gives her realtor a call to inquire about the prior owner's details. Unfortunately, all he knows about her is that she was the daughter of a prominent scholar who initially owned the property, but he swears he'll look into it. Kira takes photos of the symbols above the doors before heading to work. She gives her secretary the image and instructs her to look up their meaning while she attends the conference. However, her anxiety prevents her from paying close attention, so she departs as soon as she gets there. While leaving, Kira is stopped by her secretary, who informs her that the symbols represent the ocean monster, Leviathan, from Jewish legend and are actually Hebrew symbols. When Kira arrives at school to pick up Steven, he is bleeding after a fight he got into upon hearing one of his classmates say Ellie is dead. After they arrive home, Kira looks up information about the Leviathan online and discovers that the drawings correspond to the snake she had observed next to the Solve et Coagula article. She then decides to try the record player, and as soon as the voice starts counting, the rec room's abacus starts to move by itself. Steven starts to count as he moves in the direction of the secret room, which has also opened by itself. Luckily, Kira hears him, flips off the record player, and runs to halt her son. Steven doesn't seem to recall what he just did when asked about what transpired. Kira then proceeds to examine the painting of the man holding up a finger. She finds out that the photo has Hebrew characters inscribed on it, and his name is John Featherston. When Kira searches for him online, she discovers that everyone in the family, aside from the daughter, has vanished from the residence. The power goes off at that precise moment due to an odd breeze coming from underneath the cellar door. Kira hears Steven calling for assistance behind the door in the cellar, so she runs to open it but can't find the key, and the lock is jammed. She flees away as a monster's eye gazes back at her through the keyhole, only to discover the real Steven waiting for her in the hallway. The electricity returns and the cellar door unlocks by itself, revealing that the key was on the floor the entire time. After hanging the key on the wall, Kira uses the light on her phone to go into the cellar. As soon as she enters, the door locks behind her, so she asks Steven for assistance, but he is too short to reach the key and has to go get a chair. While waiting, Kira attempts to peer into the cellar once more and unintentionally loses her cell phone. As a result, whatever is beneath begins to breathe loudly and approaches. When the monster starts to climb up the stairs, Kira is frantic to escape. Luckily, Brian gets there in time to let her out. Later, Kira reports to Brian that her phone is missing and that she sensed someone down there. She also mentions that the Featherston family vanished just like Ellie, but Brian believes she's seeing what is not there. After helping her to calm down, Byron heads to the cellar to search for her phone, but all he discovers is a bundle of hair. The following day, Kira visits Dr. Fournette, a brilliant mathematician, at the National College of Mathematics, which houses a Featherston wing. He reads the equation aloud on the paper Kira brings him from the cellar, and the lights blinks briefly. As they go through the equation, Fournette gives her some background on Featherston, mentioning that this was formerly his workplace and that he was a co-worker of renowned physicist Erwin Schrödinger, who famously declared that a cat in a box could be both dead and living. Prior to his son's illness and subsequent exclusion from scholarly circles, Featherston collaborated closely with Schrödinger. Rose, his daughter, who Kira purchased the residence from, is the only one who knows what happened to him. However, Rose never discusses it because she never fully recovered. Fournette creates a picture that he believes depicts additional dimensions by altering the equation, but it is far more intricate than what he has ever seen. He tells Kira that he will phone her with the results after working on it. Kira returns home with a new phone. She receives a call from Fournette as soon as she switches it on, telling her that he has been attempting to reach her for some time and that a strange voice has been picking up, only answering with numbers. Then he says he discussed the equation with a colleague and thinks it has something to do with the field of mathematics developed in the 11th century by alchemists. It appears to be an unfinished invocation or sequence that has something to do with other dimensions. This colleague has also seen a similar scenario at a Belgian home where the household similarly disappeared without a trace. When Brian stops by to see how Kira is doing, he leaves Steven alone in the recreation room where the abacus is beginning to move on its own again. Kira presents the facts she has acquired to Brian. The mansion is named Zayau's, which is Greek for the emptiness before time, also known as the abyss, and Leviathan is the serpent of the abyss. Once more, Brian believes she's reading too much into the decorations, so he tries to smash the equation plaque to urge her to forget it, but the hammer doesn't even make a dent, it just rebounds. The record player starts to play at that point, and Steven goes to the concealed compartment where he discovers Ellie, who appears pale, counting while displaying symbols etched on her face. Steven calls out for assistance, but Ellie left, leaving her phone behind, and the record player stuck on 10 when Steven's parents arrive. Kira receives a call the following day from her realtor, providing her with the location of Featherston's daughter. When Kira arrives at the nursing home, she discovers a sickly Rose in a wheelchair inside the chapel. Rose wrote down Leviathan but clarifies that's not its name after a brief period of quietness. Her father brought this, one of the 7 princes of hell, to this planet in order to heal her brother's illness. Not just the cellar, but the entire home is involved in the rite. Kira tries to phone Fournette on her way back, but all she gets on the line is a voice repeating numbers. In the meantime, Brian has begun his own investigation, discovering that joining the triangles and pentagon results in a 5-pointed star. The markings surrounding this star stand for the demon Baphomet, who is the guardian of hell. In addition, the image depicts him making the identical hand gesture as Featherston did in the artwork with its arm saying "Solve Coagula." Kira knows that Rose is correct when she enters and observes everything. The entire house has been planned around it. After turning on the record player, Kira explains that the equation most likely opens the gate at the same moment. Steven loses grip of his drone and counts the steps he takes to follow it down the cellar. As the power goes out, Steven shouts and finds Baphomet waiting for him at the bottom. When his parents swiftly pursue him, all they discover is the drone, so they start a fruitless search of the house. They hear a voice counting as Steven's ball starts to bounce down the stairs, and as they follow it, they discover their child entering into the concealed compartment. After taking Steven away to see how he is doing, they find that he has a high fever. As Brian departs to get some water, Kira tries to remove Steven's shirt, only to discover that he has a star engraved on his chest. Steven abruptly stops counting and claims he remembers riding a beast with horns. When Kira goes looking for Brian once more, she discovers him counting in a different area and announcing that it is already here. The cellar door opens by itself, letting forth a powerful wind and the sounds of Baphomet approaching. Kira flees into a different room to hide, but the monster follows, so she grabs a flashlight and heads for the cellar. Kira rushes towards the door at the top of the stairs, which has miraculously grown longer, in an attempt to get away from the beast. She ducks behind one of the lower walls and waits for Baphomet to disappear through the door before venturing inside. She discovers a tunnel, and upon crossing it she is startled to discover a vast open space teeming with lost souls who are counting and traveling in a line. Ellie is one of these souls who Kira discovers because of her tattoo. Kira drags her daughter along and heads back up the stairs rushing since she hears Baphomet pursuing them and drops the flashlight in the process. The power is back on when they get back to the house, and Kira shuts the cellar door to keep the demon inside. After confirming that the family is alright, Kira tells them to go, but as she gets closer to the door she discovers her flashlight on the ground. When Kira opens the door, she sees the lengthy stairs on the other side as her family starts to count. Kira soon starts counting, and it becomes clear that the house is now on a barren area rather than in the woods.
Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.